people caring for one another. At first glance, it may not appear to be all that extraordinary, or even all that unusual. After all, retirement facilities are supposed to be in the business of caring for older adults. Staff check blood pressures. They give medicine. Their facilities provide a place that's comfortable, safe, and secure. But a closer look reveals something about that care that is extraordinary. It has to do with the reason why the care is provided. It's far more than a simple business transaction. What is happening at this retirement facility, and some 24 like it around the country, is the product of a 300-year-old faith tradition, one that looks at life from a very intentional starting point.
The Church of the Brethren has always been a group that's gathered around the Bible to make decisions, to discern what the Word of God means and how to live that out. And we do that in our communities as well.
It was obedience to the Bible that triggered the very founding of the Church of the Brethren in Germany in 1708, when a small group of Christians decided that the reforms of the Protestant Reformation did not go far enough. They defied both the existing church and the state by baptizing one another as adults and forming a community that they felt more closely mirrored the early Christian church, one based on a commitment to peace, a strong sense of community, as well as a devotion not only to God but also to their neighbors. The Brethren as a people have sought to live out the spirit of Matthew 25, which says that inasmuch as you feed those who are hungry, clothe those who are naked, and visit those in prison, you offer those same services to Jesus. From the very beginning, the Church of the Brethren has believed that service to others is an important element in their obedience to Christ. It's what led Brethren to provide for widows in 18th century Germantown in Pennsylvania, which was the landing point of Brethren after they immigrated from Europe, or the massive response after World War II with relief supplies to Europe, or the current-day disaster response effort of the Church, in which volunteers travel around the country rebuilding homes after a disaster. The Church of the Brethren also sends people for a year or two to help programs that work with the needy, called Brethren Volunteer Service. Brethren also work with peacemaking in places such as southern Sudan and Nigeria, or church planting efforts through mission work in the Dominican Republic, work that has always combined evangelism efforts with meeting the physical needs of the people. The Church of the Brethren affiliated homes each started as a response to what members of the church learned from that Bible, about what it says about how we treat each other, especially those vulnerable members of society. Some of those facilities began as orphanages, others as places where the elderly were cared for who had no immediate family. They have since evolved into what one consumer magazine recently described as among the finest caregiving facilities in the nation, places where the care that's given to residents is a reflection of the care that Jesus Christ called on his followers to provide.
We minister in the servant style of Jesus, and that's part of our vision and mission and core values. And in real practical ways, then that plays out, because it's the hands and hearts of our team members providing loving care every day in real practical ways that I think really models the Brethren value of service.
The Church of the Brethren has always believed in imitation. While other Christian groups have sacraments that bring them closer to God, Brethren have ordinances, actions that were commanded by Jesus, actions that Brethren feel directed by God to do as they attempt to be faithful in today's world. Brethren feel that how you treat others is a way to express gratitude to God for the blessings that they have received, and no place is that lived out in purer form than in the Church's 24 retirement communities.
Servanthood and service to others, obviously, I think, is a founding principle of the homes of the Church of the Brethren, the homes of the nonprofit church-related sector. Service to others is one of the primary founding ideals of the Church of the Brethren, and is very well exemplified in the Brethren homes.
There's such a blending or a consistency between what the church stands for and what we are all about. We don't have to sell our ministry to those in the congregation, because the ministry is an extension of the church. And we talk to our churches all the time and say, we really are an extension of your ministry. We do with our hands what perhaps you as a local congregation couldn't do yourself.
The care that each of the Brethren homes strives to offer reflects the Church's commitment to biblical love.
The residents that are cared for are pretty much tended to as though they're the staff's own family. Grandma is in this bed, Grandpa's in that bed, Mother is next door. I think that it's a philosophy, it's a top-down theory that is adopted by the entire staff.
As I'm out among the staff and the residents, I see a lot of compassion, I see a lot of service, I see a lot of interest in providing a care for residents that allow them to be the best they can at this time. So those values are really not only in the chaplain's part of the work, but they're there in the other parts of the staff.
Everyone just seems to be bent over backwards, I guess you might say, to please the folks here, and of course that's a brethren tradition of kindness and love for those around them.
Part of the Church of the Brethren understanding of faith also includes the notion that humans are multidimensional. They have physical needs, especially as they age, but they also have emotional and spiritual needs. The homes affiliated with the Church of the Brethren have invested lots of time and effort in services other than health care, sometimes at significant expense.
We surround ourselves with people who know that the bottom line is not the dollars, the savings. We're very concerned about meeting our budget, of course. We have to be in order to ensure that we'll be here for future generations. But our focus is on the people we serve rather than making a profit. We're here for a different reason, and that's to give quality of life to seniors.
Quality of life is enhanced by programs that stimulate the mind, that keep residents connected to the larger community, and provides for continued spiritual growth and development. It's part of a commitment by the Brethren Homes to enhancing all elements of life, not just physical health.
While physical is foremost, it's no less important or no more important than the spiritual needs and the psychosocial needs that are followed up with.
It's an approach to caring for the whole person that residents can count on even after their financial resources are exhausted.
All of the Church of the Brethren organizations, the senior living communities, all have a policy that will assure that when someone joins them, moves in with them, that they can remain there, regardless of their financial situation.
The cost is covered by a combination of government programs and the community itself.
Most of the Brethren Homes have fundraisers. For instance, here we have a chicken barbecue, an auction in the summer. We have a annual Good Samaritan dinner, which is a banquet that people pay a considerable amount per ticket to come to. Auxiliary sales of different kinds. However, you can find, an avenue to raise money for the Good Samaritan Fund, and people recognize it's a good cause.
It's an outgrowth of the value the Church of the Brethren places on community, as modeled by the early Christian church. Brethren look to the biblical example of how the early church cared for one another as the pattern for supporting their institutions, which were established for that very reason.
We have 21 supporting churches. They have historically supported us at about the same rate. Where we see the majority of our contributions coming from are current residents and church members who've been touched by the home in some way, that they've had a loved one here, and they support us individually, and that's where a larger percentage of the donations come from.
Another side of that sense of community is the value the Church of the Brethren has always placed on equality. In church life, it's called the priesthood of all believers, the notion that no one is greater in God's eyes than another, and that each member of the church community has a contribution to make, depending upon his or her gift.
Many of our churches supply some of our greatest ministry needs with volunteers, and there are CNAs or frontline workers that we look at and say, God has uniquely gifted them to be a caregiver, and we plug them in that role and watch them prosper. So that's another way, I think, as we talk about stewardship. Time, talents, and of course the resources that He's given us. And that's another way we lift up the Brethren values.
The care that we get is more personalized. We know the people who are administrating the whole program here, and we feel comfortable going to them with a problem. I think that's the more important part that shows Brethren values.
The focus of each of the Brethren Homes is on improving the lives of the people it serves, not because doing so will necessarily increase profits, but because the main reason for existing has always been to care for people, in obedience to Jesus' call to love and serve one another.
Any profits that are made are turned right back, poured right back into programming, caring for the needs of the residents and the employees, rather than retaining the profits and distributing, if you will, to stockholders. The stockholders in our business are the people that are cared for, and therefore they reap the rewards of any profits.
For many members of the Church of the Brethren, one of the holiest moments of church life is the reenactment, twice a year, of the Last Supper of Jesus Christ, a ritual that begins with the literal washing of each member's feet by another. It's a symbol of humility, a symbol of service modeled by Jesus, one that brethren ask their members to honor through their lives. And it's carried out literally each and every day by those who serve the homes of the Church of the Brethren.
We talk about washing feet at the foot washing service, but literally every day we are washing the feet of our residents and family members and each other. I think we touch lives each day in the servant style of Jesus. That's the part where I think we live out the Brethren values. Treating that person as a child of God, and the way, of course, that you would expect and hope to be treated is challenging, but that's really where ministry happens. And so, yeah, I think that absolutely is a consistent flow of Brethren values into our ministry.
It's an approach to caregiving that began some 300 years ago, one that's founded on principles of service to others, modeled after biblical love, and one that acknowledges people as multidimensional. The Brethren homes place a high value on community, as modeled by the early Christian church, and a strong belief in equality among all those who make the homes of the Church of the Brethren places inspired by faith and operated with love.